Yeah.
This month's webinar is around harnessing customer feedback-driven insights in an AI-driven world. So we've done a few webinars the past few months around AI and the impacts to business and what that means. But really today's is about like having that human touch and having that human element with that, because there's a lot of information and data analysis you can do with AI. But there's some things that you maybe want to hold back on when it comes to AI and not letting it do everything for you. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Why you shouldn't rely on AI alone. It's a tool in the toolbox, right? It's a help. It can help you. It can speed up processes, but it shouldn't probably be left to make decisions on its own. And then the customer feedback in this day and age, there's a lot of things that are changing, expectations. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. And then as well as like acting on that feedback. So we're collecting it, we can use AI to analyze it, but then how do you implement that in your business? And then we'll finish up with the key takeaways from today's webinar. So I want to introduce our guest. Very excited to have Andres Escobar from ReviewBiz.io. Andres is the CEO. I know you call yourself the Chief Energy Officer, and rightly so. And Andres also hosts his own podcast. So he's a podcast extraordinaire, Gym Owners Growth Zone. So I'll kick it over to you and let you introduce yourself.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate you guys here as well. And yeah, I'm running a podcast business. It's actually like running two businesses. It's fun though, because our ideal customers and the audience, I'm not too sure the audience are agencies or are they actual users of the platform, but either or, everyone has businesses, everybody has clients. And so the podcast became a platform to be able to talk to our ideal customer and, marketing, sales, growing with Google, all the intricacies of that with GatherUp. And I can imagine, that's, a big ball of what. So I definitely, I came here and I want to make sure that I support you guys as best I can. Any questions you guys have, feel free to go in there and just drop them in there. Like how am I doing a podcast? I get that question. What equipment am I using? What all these things that if you guys are thinking about doing a podcast, I recommend definitely as a good avenue, a great avenue actually for those conversations and referrals. Like I get so many referrals because of the podcast now. It's crazy. So yeah, hopefully that kind of takes it for me. But yeah, drop off some questions. Love to answer them.
Yeah, sweet. And Andres and I were talking a little bit before this, and the reason I wanted to bring him on is he cares so much about his clients and his clients' customers, and so like this is a great a resource to talk about like how to take care of them and how to really it's not just about we're doing X, Y, and Z for their business, but like make them part of the community. And that's, I think, the human element as we get into this, like that AI can't handle. So thanks again for joining, Andres.
Of course, thanks.
I'm Steve Hartman, product marketing manager for GatherUp. Those who come regularly probably are familiar with me. I've been with GatherUp for over 4 years and kind of work in that intersection of customers, our customers, product, CS, sales, and marketing. So really get a lot of touch points in different, getting that feedback from customers, but also how do we implement that into the product. One of the things that I helped launch earlier this year was our AI assisted review replies feature called Smart Reply. And we've seen a lot of great feedback from customers on that and just how much time that's saving them. Again, it's not just plug and play and let AI respond for you, but it does save a bunch of time, and we've seen some great response from that. So I think that's it for introductions. If this is your first time joining, just a quick second on what GatherUp is. GatherUp's a platform that helps you scale all aspects of reputation management, from listening to understanding to engaging with customers, so that you can improve the customer experience across multiple businesses. To Andres's point, we usually get a mix of agencies and business owners on here, so any and all are welcome on our webinars. All right, so this month's topic, AI. Let's talk about why you shouldn't rely on AI-driven content and insights alone. There are limitations to AI. I think most of us, if you've been paying attention to the new AI craze and ChatGPT and Bard and all that stuff, there are some challenges, right? Like there's biases that exist in these models. The AI is only as good as what you feed it, and if there are biases in our content across the world today, which we know there likely is in the AI models as well. And I think another thing that can really be missed is like emotion and some of these really uniquely human things that are offered in customer conversations or feedback or however you're using AI. So like having a person to look at that is really important. The other thing that we talked about a few months back on one of our webinars was about like user guides and manuals and using AI to train. In those customer conversations, this is probably more like a support function. But unless you're really keeping up on that stuff and 100% sure that stuff is accurate, it can provide incorrect information. And so there's like a human time resource element too, that you have to create these things to feed the AI that all needs to be correct. So there are obvious limitations when it comes to AI. So it was just a couple things on other limitations, right? Like people, I know I'm one of them. I would prefer to wait in line to talk to a human rather than get a chat bot, because a lot of times the chat bots are really good at answering very simple questions and connecting you to a resource or connecting you to an agent when they can't solve it. But I think that can be a point of frustration for a lot of people when it comes to AI and using these types of systems. So just understanding what they're used for. One of the things we learned from one of our previous webinars was like this 80-20 rule of 80. If the process is 80% automated, like use AI for that. But when you start talking to customers, that stuff's tough to automate, and it's not repeatable. It's got to be unique, right? So whether it's a customer service chat function or something with analyzing data, if it's straightforward, easy. But if it's not, then you really need to get that human involved. And this is one of the things that, Andres, I want to bring you in, but like the human touch. Right. So there are unique things to each brand. You might brand standards, ethics, how you go about your process with customer service, community or business events. So like those in Florida, right? Like you maybe don't want an AI responding to certain things during hurricane events because they don't quite maybe understand what the community is going through. So like from a gym owner perspective and your clients, how do you see like that human touch being just so important when you're dealing with gym customers?
It's not like a fatal thing like a hurricane, right? You have a hurricane and you guys can hear me okay? Because I feel like the internet's going in and out, but you guys.
Yeah, you're kind of going in and out.
All right. So the it's not crucial to a point like emergency or hospital, right? But for me, when I'm using AI, I'm programming it as best as I can. So one of the first things that I do to help it as best for the human touch, because the questions I say, hey, ask me. I am this person. I am this persona for my podcast the other day. It's like, all right, I run a podcast. We have this gym owners, is the name of it, and ask me questions to help you understand who I am better. And so that becomes a prompt. And so when I first started using AI, I just created every question. We like Google, like every question would be a new thing. It's like, no, you can actually stay keeping that same prompt. I mean, that same question, that first query that you ask them to fill out that, and then rename it like, hey, this is my main prompt for this business, and so you then continue programming it and making it closer to human touch as you can be, and then obviously there's things that still gets wrong, and you correct it. By the way, that's incorrect. It's this, and so it's just an ongoing process of learning. So, I could see the future where I created a prompt and it's so valuable, this prompt. How do I pass this along to another person? Right? Hey, this is a prompt I built out. I want to pass it to you. And so that's where I help, program. You can program empathy. You can program empathy. That can do, believe it or not. But it's definitely I find sometimes it writes better emails than I do. But of course you gotta edit it and do a couple things. Just like you said, you gotta make sure it doesn't do the job for you completely. You have to make sure that quality assurance. That's what you are. You just quality assurance. Make sure everything is good uh, as you want to see it done. So that's my take.
Yeah. One thing in our team, we've talked about, like, using it for content, like you kind of brought up, but like one of the things you have to worry about is plagiarism and copyright infringement, things like that. Um, Inconsistencies with some of the results. I've seen some examples, and I'm sure others have as well, of like SGE. There's one example of like, hey, I want to look for the best restaurant in this town, and SGE actually pulled in a restaurant from like an hour away. So there's like things like that are still a little inaccurate, maybe inconsistent. Imagery, even with this example of creating an image of a local restaurant owner working on her computer. Well, one looks like somebody's working on the computer. The other one on the left doesn't really look like that. So like even within images, you can see different results. So I think, like you said, the quality assurance, like we're all becoming, if you're using AI, you are essentially becoming quality assurance in your organization. So there's lots of examples like this. Another one I read about was AI, Amazon, and how they were using something to recruit other tech firms, but a lot of the data had shown that it was primarily men in the field. And so the AI started giving priority to male resumes, which, as you can guess, is not a good situation for Amazon to be in, and really hurt them, and their credibility a little bit, I think, on the hiring practices. So there's things like that you just have to be aware of. Not that, again, that AI isn't a useful tool. It's just that there are some challenges that can exist, and things to be aware of. So one of the things that's key here is that you just can't rely on it solely to make decisions for businesses, right? So it can help. I mentioned it earlier; it's a tool in the toolbox, but I personally wouldn't just leave AI to do everything for me. The quality assurance, I love that. I'm gonna use that from now on, Andres. So there's missed opportunities, especially when you're looking at like feedback data at scale. It's really directional, and you can get some insights, but I think you need to dig deeper on your own, because like some of the things we have, even you can see trends, and you look at it and you think one thing, but then as you go a little deeper, and I'll show examples later, you might see, okay, this isn't exactly an issue at my restaurant, even though the data said that this is something that's maybe common, even if it's not that common. So now we're going to move into like customer feedback. So we talked about like limitations of AI. I think everybody, if you've been following, understands most of that. But now we're going to kind of apply it and talk about how like the human touch is especially important when it comes to feedback and customer relations. So some information I pulled recently from Salesforce. This was 68% of customers say advances in AI make it more important for companies to be trustworthy. And that's something you'll probably see a lot here is there's a lot of concern about privacy and trust and security and things with AI. And 88% of customers expect companies to accelerate digital initiatives due to COVID. So I think a lot of changes have happened in expectations and experiences since COVID happened. I mean, a lot of businesses had to change their models. Restaurants had to change. I'm sure in-person places like gyms had to change a lot, Andres, like as far as, what post-COVID versus pre-COVID, like what were the biggest things that you saw change in the experience at gyms?
Well, gyms had to go outside and do work. That was a big thing. And so gyms had to do that. And then also I've actually had gyms where they stopped charging their customer. Like, talk about human touch. A robot
Mm,
would not do that.
right.
Like, that does not make sense. So they stopped the charge, and so for that period of time, and then they continued. And so how many people do you think they lost? Like, how loyal do you think those customers became after, they, like, they're probably not going to leave ever. That
Right.
community is strong. That community, is going to stay there. So, one thing about business is that, for our business, hey, great, you start with us, but what really matters is you stay with us, and you repeat use. Repeat customer is more valuable than a new customer. Like, that's for sure, because they're not only a customer, but they're also a fan, because they're gonna be your biggest cheerleader and probably refer you business. So if you can get repeat customers and referrals, like, that's the key. And so I think that's what changed. It actually woke people up. It did for me. It woke me up. I'm like, Google has a lot of power. It shut everybody down.
Right. Yeah.
It's like everyone's closed. I'm like, what do you mean everyone's closed? How's
Yeah.
that? Businesses were like, I never did that change. Like, yeah, Google did. Google shut you
Right.
down. And so I know for sure that like it says here, like, the landscape, it changed after COVID for sure. And so, the AI is going to do the same thing. It's going to separate the people. In the gym, there's a lot of businesses are, faltered. They failed. So is AI something that's going to take you out? That's the question I think everyone's asking. So if you're not asking it, you're probably asking it now, and so my quick answer would be no, it shouldn't. If you're not using it, it's going to, because other people are going to do the job faster,
Hmm.
you know. I use it for replying to emails. Man, it writes such a beautiful email. I'm like, oh my goodness. Well, not right away, right? It's like, oh, well, take that out, move this around, change this
Right.
around, prompts, and just letting it learn how to write for you. Then it's like, okay, great. But I'm still quality assurance, the little buffer, make
Yep.
sure everything checks out. Oh no, I didn't say that. It's so important to be that quality assurance. So, but do the job better, amplify. It's a superpower. It can be a superpower if you want it to be.
Right. Love that.
Yeah.
Uh, so other things that you'll see as changing expectations, one of them is personalization. I think a lot more people expect more personalized experience from, at this point. Um, and then I think the other one that I notice is this idea of like how Amazon has changed expectations for businesses, for all businesses, right? Like I want it now. Like Amazon can get it to me tomorrow or later today, right? So there's kind of this expectation that all retail stores should be able to do that, and it's not true. And so now you have to win in other ways. If you can't beat that, you have to, innovate in other ways, push the limits on what you can do, maybe use AI to help, improve some processes so that you can get products out quicker if you're a retail type business. So there's a lot of things that have changed in the last handful of years, and COVID sped some of that up. But AI, to your point, is also going to speed it up exponentially. Um, so differentiate, like I said, by building trust, um, doing right by like data and privacy concerns, that's just becoming really important. And that's again where like AI can, you got to be careful with it. And what you put into some of those open platforms, Chat GPT being one of them, if you put if you put private stuff in there, that's going to be used. And so you got to be really careful about what you're putting into these prompts, and these platforms. And I think, you kind of mentioned it, Andres, with the gym who, hey, we're not going to charge you. Like, you got to differentiate by listening, understanding the situation, and then engaging with those customers and building that reputation. And I think that's, what a lot of businesses strive to do, is that's the differentiation for businesses, especially when you're competing with certain players who have bigger budgets or, more people or more stores or more gyms or whatever. It's how do you differentiate? And a lot of times it comes down to just doing right by customers.
Yeah, I was talking to the webinar I was in yesterday, and we were talking about this small gym competing with Planet Fitness. And this small gym had 13 reviews, and Planet Fitness had like 536, something like that. How do you compete, right? And that's how you compete. That's exactly how you compete. You set yourself apart with those you know customer attention that's geared towards, your I'm going to get you results. I'm going to focus on you. You know, they don't need that many customers, to stay in
Mhm.
business. But yeah, the customer this is actually super important, is setting the expectations at the beginning, right? You tell them, hey, all right, awesome, you signed up. All right, this is what you should expect. I'm going to send you an email with this and that. And then on my team, you're also going to get an email from this person, and they're going to this and that. Then the next week, we're going to do this. So you set the expectations is like, we are here for your success. Whatever problem you think we can solve, we're going to solve that for you. And so that's what gives you the difference. If you do that, like, you're going to outplay your whole competition. Like that little, I hope you take that and implement it to your business, because it's going to change. And it's funny because I'm telling you now, but it's a new concept I just learned, and I'm like, okay, how do we put it into place? Because ideas will come, but you got to see, hey, how can I put it into play? While soon, how fast can I execute for the
Mhm.
expectations? Managing expectations are the biggest part of keeping a customer for life,
Right.
right? Yeah.
So let's look at a couple examples of how feedback can like shape the business. Maybe product, service, maybe it's something else. But here's one example. That the graphic on the right is actually out of our platform called Smart Insights. So we're using um, AI to analyze reviews, right? And then like bucket it and say, what are we doing well? Where do we need improvement? And where you're doing well is often like a marketing opportunity, maybe something that you didn't recognize, but most businesses kind of, I think, have a sense of what they do well. Where you need to focus is probably more in the improvement area. So what things are customers complaining about, or what things are they not happy with? In this example, it's increased operational hours. What I love about this kind of analysis is it gives you that quick snapshot, and you get it in pretty much real time, right? Like you're getting feedback in from customers after they visit, or whatever that time frame is, but you're getting that feedback quickly. You can iterate on new store openings or product launches, and get instant feedback and know right away within a day or two or less how you're doing and how that's going and how your launch is being received. Anything in customer service related, but like in this example, we're talking about increased operational hours, wish they were open more. I can think about that, and like now I'm weighing, I have to make the decision as a business owner. Is that a good thing for my business based on, my employee schedule, based on my market, based on my, the deliveries that come in, my product? So like customers might want that, but then ultimately, you decide, right? Like the business owner has to come and make that decision. And I think that's where AI can present these things. It can analyze this stuff and give it to you in a quick snapshot. But the business owner or whoever's in charge is going to make the decision on whether we're going to go forward with that. Same with this
I
quality.
see
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
question that I would love to. It's by Billy, and he says, or Bill, sorry. Considering the statistics that 68% of customers believe that advancements in AI make increasingly crucial for companies to demonstrate trustworthiness, would it be safe to conclude that marketing oneself as heavily reliant on AI technology or being AI centric may not be valuable strategy, or may not be a valuable strategy? So, yeah, I don't. For me, I don't tell people that, hey, I'm replying this email with AI, like, because again, if you are uh just by AI, it probably you should, but I'm a buffer. So it's basically, I just get somebody else. It's like hiring a copywriter. Say, hey, what do you think about this copyright? And then you look at it and it's like, okay, great, let me edit and change it, and then done. Like if you go to a chat bot, like you go to someone's website and you see a little, hey, this is a bot. Yeah, then you should let them know, hey, you're chatting with a bot. If it's a live interaction, you probably should warn them, hey, you're chatting with a bot. And so they understand that they might say the wrong thing, and then your brand, it doesn't get hit for it, right? You don't want to be responsible, liable for the bot representing you in the wrong way. And so what do you think? So, I mean, is that, I think I touched on everything that you were thinking about that statistic?
Yeah, I would also say that there's ways to market it, but I would probably lean into the benefit, right? So for us, we have a tool where you can respond using AI, but we talk about it as, hey, you can respond faster, you can personalize it, and you can do it at scale. We're using AI, but that's the benefit of it. It's not, we're not saying, hey, we got this AI feature. It's so I would hone in on the benefit. And I also think like there's a difference between being AI centric or heavily reliant versus using it in ways that help the business. Like a lot of times it's sort of in the background, I would say. And ultimately the idea here is with our smart insights is to surface themes that customers are talking about. We're using AI to do it, but ultimately, the humans, the people running the business, have to make decisions on what that means to them. So I don't know that. I guess would I market it as AI centric? I would say like, hey, we're using it to help our customers, and here's how we're doing it, or here's what it does. It makes things faster. It makes things easier. It surfaces new insights that would normally take you a week to figure out. It can do it in minutes. So I don't know if that answers it, Bill, but I think there's a balance, and I think customers understand that, and I think they still appreciate what you were saying, Andres, is like there's a human behind it, even if like it's driven by AI. I think having that touch, and they can tell the difference. So if you're trying to deceive by saying this is a real person in a chat and it's actually a bot, that ain't gonna fly because people are gonna figure that out pretty quick.
Yeah. I mean, interesting. I'm thinking about like, AI and algorithms and all that good stuff there. So like if I'm a day trader and I just have the AI trade for me, right? So I feel confident that the AI or the algorithm is going to trade correctly and make me money, right? So maybe that's just the way you do it. And that's your business. But yeah, I mean, for I think everybody else that has a brick and mortar business, it's a different story, right?
Mhm.
So
Right.
whether you're a restaurant or you're a plumber, how does AI come into that place? It'd be cool to understand like the if you guys have a specific, industry, you guys say, hey, how can AI help me? We'll topic, discussion. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, that's the way I see it. It's good.
Yep. All right. Thanks for the question, Bill. We talked about loyalty and trust. I think Andres, you brought it up. 81% of customers won't do business with you if they don't trust you. So that's a wildly important part of this, and that kind of goes back to, are you using AI shady? Are you using it but not telling people you're using it, or are you calling things live interactions when they're actually chatbots, whatever that is. But really, it's just about like safeguarding that reputation, because once you get tainted as not trustworthy, it's pretty hard to recover. So there's a lot of things that GatherUp provides, but any platform really, anybody you're using to help gather feedback or doing it on your own, as long as you're gathering that feedback, that's going to build trust. And if you do it right, when you're asking every customer, that's how you got to approach it. Because if you pick and choose who you're going talking to and asking for feedback, it's that's another way to erode trust. So make sure that as you ask for that feedback, that's part of it, is the loyalty and the trust aspect of it. I talked about this a little bit earlier too, the 80% repetitive use of AI. So those are the things, like, again, like that's where I think of like AI centric. Like you're using it for tasks that are pretty much repetitive. Like they're manual things. They're not decision making. They're not overly customer facing. Again, in this statistic here, 61% prefer self-service for simple issues. Hey, like, how can I find this? Or do you offer X? Well, that stuff's easy to find, right? Shouldn't need a human to interact with that person to get them to where they need to be. But there's a lot of people who do want to talk to a person, and there's more complex issues, and I have further questions and things like that. And so, how do you do that? Here we have Delta agent, but of course, Delta also has their chat message that you can go through as well, which you get lots of messages. Are we getting to where I need to? Man, I just want to talk to somebody, right? Like that's where a lot of people get to with the more complex questions. And so think about it that way as well. Super repetitive tasks, easy to solve. AI is great. More complex, more customer facing. I would try to steer them to humans as much as possible. All right, so so far we talked about AI, limitations, data analysis, looking at using it in your business. Now we're going to talk a little bit about like how do you take the AI analysis of the feedback you're getting and put it into action. So first, I always like to start off with implementation. And Andres, I want to get your take on this as well, as starting with business owners and like doing this for the first time. But like measurement, understanding that customer journey, where are you going to ask them for feedback? What things are you going to measure are all super important. So maybe talk a little bit about your clients, especially the ones that are just starting out, and like, what do you talk to them about when you're saying, hey, we're going to start a feedback implementation program?
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's super important. So, talking about feedback, one thing that we believe is that the faster you get feedback, the faster you can build and grow your business. People are afraid to ask for feedback. It's like, oh my goodness, what are you going to say about they're going to nitpick and this and that. So obviously, there's ways to save your reputation. So you want to hear everybody. You want to hear the bad stuff. Somebody yesterday told me, oh no, that's 4.7. I'm like, yeah, and that's awesome. So, talking about like reviews, you have the ideal score rating is 4.4 to 4.8. It's proven that the conversion factors in that, because rating's a good conversion point. It's 4.4 to 4.8. But yeah, asking everybody, when we start with our customers, we tell them, hey, this is what we should expect from you, this is what we should expect from us. This is what we're going to do. In 2 weeks, we're going to be doing this. And so that's actually clear. So it's super clear setting those goals with our customers. Now, depending on the industry, like if you guys have a specific industry, like we can help you with that, and then how to implement that feedback. One industry that I find is really hard is the restaurant business. So the restaurant business is hard to gather their customer information, like name, phone number, and email. And I actually saw a restaurant do this really good. I mean, not really good, but I mean, an improvement, a step in the right direction. So it's a taco place, and nobody at the cash register. Everybody is customer relations. Okay. There is 2 kiosks at the restaurant. This is a walk-in restaurant, and they have a screen, and you order your food and you put in your phone number. And so your name and your phone number are connected. And now when you get, and then you go pick up your meal. I thought it was so genius. I thought this mundane fact of ordering your meal, let's make it real easy. Let's make the UI super simple so somebody can just order themselves. Because I see it when people are like, oh, what do you want this? And this, that, this, and oh my goodness, it gets crazy. So I thought it was really awesome to have that in the as an option, measuring the right things to multiple data points. What do you mean by that, Steve? I'm kind of a little. What's like?
Sure.
Give us an example.
So like if let's say you had a goal in this quarter to improve your let's stick with your category, like individual workouts with personal trainers, right? So now I'm going to make sure that I am measuring people when they mention personal trainer, or, their names of the personal trainers or whatever. So now, just so that I am aware that that is tied to my business goal, so you're not like, hey, we're just measuring feedback and ratings. Like, that's great. But there's also like nuance that you can do here, as part of your feedback process. So just like tying it to the business and not just general generic ratings. So that's what I was talking about there.
Yeah, no, and that's actually something that we're looking into, like, maybe the session, like after, like, for example, there's a system called MindBody that's focused on gyms, and everybody, every time they have a class, they get asked the feedback. So like, hey, I want to know about that trainer specifically. Is that what you mean? Like
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, maybe it's like the waiter, right? If you're a
Right.
restaurant, it's like, hey, this is my specific measurement or feedback loop that, hey, let me know how I did, right?
Yep.
And so bonuses and can be geared off of that, right? To help the person.
100%.
Now they're what are they? What happens? Everyone's accountable.
Yep.
Oh man, talk about performance going up, right? Forget about the
Yep.
tip. I was recently in Europe, and we're in Europe, and the tipping is not normal. But
Yep.
what's also not normal? Service is not that great.
Right. Yep.
But here it is, because we do tip, and so they're like, oh, okay, that's how they're measured on their
Yep.
point. So that's it.
Right. Yeah, perfect transition to like, how do you develop that customer centric culture? You talked about that restaurant example. That's a great example, but it starts from the top down, and like, everybody has to care about it. Everybody in your organization can be a customer service or customer support person, right? Essentially. And you talked about like rewarding employees based on feedback that mentions by name. So now you have this implementation, you have the tools to analyze it, but you got to make sure that all these people are invested in this. And then, once you do that, you get the insights on salesperson's name or how that person is doing, because you have that feedback from the customers about that person. I think this example of Zappos is highlights it. Like, customer service is at the very top of the website. Like, you literally open the website and it's at the very top. I mean, that to me tells you that they care about it. They prioritize it. So that's really important. I saw this one on Twitter. This is an old tweet, but I recreated it so you could read it better. This person had, for 15 times in the notes when he booked a hotel, was asking for a picture of Johnny Utah and Bodie from Point Break. I don't know if anybody remembers that movie. Maybe I'm dating myself. And he finally got it, and he was so happy. So then he says, "Well done, Hilton Hotels." So I mean, like, think about that, how silly, but like, somebody read that and actually put it in his hotel room. And I think, how cool. Like, they cared enough to do that. So that's another cool example of that. So everybody in the hotel can be a part of that and make a great experience. So how do we take that? No, okay, so now we got the feedback coming in, we know what we're measuring. Here's an example of, like, we talked about restaurants, right? So Shelby and Clean Juice, partner of ours, they did, they were launching some new food items. So they were tracking wrap and sandwiches and sentiment around that, as well as like a new smoothie called peanut butter flavor smoothie. And so they were not tracking that. And so what they do, they can create these tags in our system, or there may be other ways in other systems to do that, but you can track those things and then start to organize your data, use AI to analyze just these reviews that mention peanut butter. And all of a sudden you have a quick, okay, we launched this 3 months ago. Here's what customers are saying. We're going to have to discontinue it. They're not happy. They're not loving it. Or in their case, they changed the ovens for the wraps and their sandwiches, and they changed some of the food offerings and how they did it, because they knew that was a concern. So what you're able to do then is take that feedback, collect it, a bunch of it, and then use AI to organize it and AI to analyze it for you. So again, as we look at some of these examples, you get the insights, but then as a person, so I saw this one as money. Like, this is another report that we have, but money. Okay, so does this mean that people aren't happy with how much it costs at our pizza joint? So you dive in and you realize, okay, this one person didn't seem real happy, but they mentioned money a couple times, and so it's surfacing. The AI is saying, hey, this might be an issue, but when I actually dive in, it's one angry customer, probably not worth changing our operations about, or changing our pricing model, or getting too worked up about. So all of that to say, there's lots of data here. There's lots of feedback that you can collect, analyze it. Sometimes the AI gives you insights that you're like, I don't know that that's anything we need to worry about. So just something to consider too, as you use AI for some of this feedback analysis. So last thing on this point that we'll talk about is just like the different elements of the business that can be affected leveraging that feedback. So we talked about these reviews and things like that, but like that's creating, personalized experiences. So you can start organizing this data and saying, all right, anybody who's mentioned this product, we're going to send out a special offer to that group, whether it's email or SMS or whatever. Maybe you have some internal HubSpot, CRM that you can use to send marketing messages. You can look at operational improvements like we talked about with the hours or the staffing, customer success, customer service. Do we need to train our employees better based on some of this feedback we're getting? So there's lots of parts of the business that can use feedback and the AI analysis of that feedback to improve what they're doing. All right, so takeaways. I threw this in here because I don't know how many have seen the iRobot movie. Again, maybe I need newer movie references. But this was from iRobot, and Will Smith's character, he has an issue with the robots. But at the end of the movie, I think the conclusion is that the robots help him, but ultimately he's got to be the one to figure out how to solve the problem at the end of the movie. And so, I think that's a great example of what we're going through today is like, there's this stuff and it can be scary and it can be like, man, how do I use this? Oh, it's going to take my job. But at the end of the day, it's all about learning to adapt with this stuff and using it to your advantage. So it's a tool in the toolbox. It shouldn't replace you unless you let it. But you always have to maintain this balance between the AI and the human insights, the human touch, integrated into the feedback strategy and all of that to build more trust amongst customers. And that's how you grow in this day and age. So there's lots of uses for AI in marketing and stuff. And we've talked about those on previous webinars, but any final thoughts from you, Andres, on like, how AI impacts this feedback loop or in this reputation process for businesses?
You're asking me, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a little choppy, and I apologize for that. Internet's
Oh, good.
not the best right now for real. But yeah, how to improve how I mean, I'm reading there were some good robots and there were some bad robots, and you couldn't tell the difference. You really couldn't tell the difference. And so, be careful which one you're using. Sometimes, the Chat GPT 3.5 is better than the 4.0, right? And so you got to take a look at that stuff. You got to don't, because you had a bad incident or a bad circumstance, something happened with AI, don't just, hey, forget it. It's not going to work. This is stupid. No, don't give up on it. It's just started. Like, listen, guys, it was November. It's less than a year old. Would you tell a less than a year old baby, oh, you suck, you're not walking? No, you don't. You're like, all right, you believe in it. It's going to do something. Now, can that baby turn out to be, Adolf Hitler? Yeah, it can be, but let's do things. Let's nurture it. Let's do right things. Let's not let it take over our lives. I think that's a super important point, is that don't let it take over your decision making. You should have decision making. Let it influence you, but don't let it replace you.
Right. Well said.
Thanks.
All right. Any final questions here? I haven't seen any come through the Q&A, but happy to stay on for another minute or so and answer any questions. While we do that, if you want to check out Andre's podcast, Gym Owners Growth Zone podcast, you can find it at reviewbiz.io/podcast. How often do you doing those? Are those they're often. I see them a lot. So are they
Oh
weekly?
yeah. That a whole bunch pre-recorded, and so we release it once a week. So before we started, we had like a handful ready to go. So we're like so we'll record 2 this week and maybe 3 next week, but we'll release them once every week. Once we have a nice, like, let's say 2-month or 3-month, then we'll release 2. But yeah, just once a week. We are talking to not just gym owners, but honestly, like some other business owners as well, that share stories, challenges, and how they grew their business. And so that's super important. Like either they're starting a new business, growing a current business, or selling a business. And so those are the 3 different areas that I see where growth happens. And so yeah, it's so much fun doing it. I appreciate it. This is actually my podcast setup right here. So
Yeah.
This is what it looks like.
Yeah, great job with that. And yeah, I don't mean to shortchange at all. Any business can learn a lot from those. I've listened to them, and they're phenomenal. And you get such different guests with different perspectives. There's operations side, there's sales side, there's everything in between. So really interesting stuff. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for coming on today. I haven't seen any more questions, so appreciate everybody joining today. We'll send out the follow-up with the recording as well as the slides. If there's anything else you need from us, feel free to reach out. Steve Hartman, GatherUp. Thank you to our guest, Andres Escobar from reviewbiz.io. And we hope everyone has a great day. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. See y'all. Bye-bye.